Hello everyone, my name is Miss Reshma and I'm here to tell you some of my favorite stories from this spiritual book called Tales of the Mystic East. I am starting with an introduction, so kindly pay attention. Tales have been told as long as people have been talking. Tales well told communicate their message in a way that all of us like to hear. Many of us may not relish a philosophical or moral treatise, but truth, in the guise of a good story, will be enjoyed by all. Over hundreds of years, as stories are handed down from one generation to another, some points slip out, some creep in, some are exaggerated. The authenticity of the stories is not the issue. Whether a particular event took place or not, a saint really did this, that, or not, a miracle actually happened. What is important is the moral, the message contained in the story. Saints use stories to hammer home what we need to know. The stories serve as vehicles for their teachings, enabling the readers to absorb their wisdom in a simple and direct way. So, this book is a collection of stories narrated by Maharaj Sawan Singh in his discourses that are drawn from mystic literature of India, Iran, Arabia, and other Eastern countries. Each story illustrates a particular spiritual truth or example of conduct. In this revised edition of Tales of the Mystic East, some 60 additional stories have been translated from the original Punjabi and included with those of the earlier editions. As before, the tales have been retold with additional contextual and cultural detail for the benefit of readers unfamiliar with the Eastern tradition. So now I'm going to start with story number 1 called Fools Take No Advice. Once upon a time, there was a foolish merchant. He loaded a sack of wheat on one side of his horse and balanced it with a sack of sand on the other side, so that the horse would not feel any discomfort. A poor man, watching him loading the horse, asked him, "Sir, may I ask you, what are you doing?" The merchant replied, "On one side, I have put wheat, and on the other side, to balance the load, I have put sand. Would it not be better," asked the passerby, "if you divided the sack of wheat into 2 equal parts and put one on each side?" Now, my man, I have a question for you. Just tell me, how much wealth do you have? The merchant retorted in a huff, "Nothing except myself," the man replied. "Then don't talk to me," replied the horseman testily. "Keep your fancy theories to yourself, lest I too become a poor man like you." Fools are unwilling to take counsel. Saints give us advice but we pay no heed to them. Moral of a story? In a proverb, none so deaf as those who will not hear. Moving on to story number 2. The inviolable law. Bali, as it is told in the Ramayana, had performed many arduous penances and thereby earned the boon that whoever came to fight with him would lose half of his strength to him. Thus, Bali's strength always increased, while that of his enemy was taken away. It was for this reason that whenever his enemy Sugriv went to war with him, Sugriv was always defeated. Now, Lord Ram was well aware of Bali's boon, and it so happened that after Sugriv came to him asking for his assistance against Bali, Ram hid himself behind a tree and shot Bali with an arrow. While Bali was dying, he said to Ram, "I am absolutely innocent of any wrong done towards you and have never harmed you in any way. Accordingly, Lord Ram, you will have to pay for this deed in your next life." In their next lives, Ram was incarnated as Lord Krishna and Bali as a member of the Bhil tribe. Sometime after the great battle of Mahabharat, Lord Krishna was sleeping in its forest with one foot resting on the other. As a sign of highly evolved soul, he had a lotus mark on the sole of each foot. The tribesmen, seeing these marks sparkling in the sun, mistook the marks for the eyes of a deer, aimed an arrow and shot Lord Krishna. When he came to pick up his prey, he realized his terrible mistake. With folded hands, he asked the dying Krishna for forgiveness. Krishna told him of the incident in their previous lives and explained that what had happened was inevitable. He was not to blame, but he had to repay the debt of his karmas. The law of karma, my dear students, is inviolable. None, not even incarnations of gods, can escape it. Moving on to story number 3. Lord Buddha and the Shepherd. As Lord Buddha was walking one day along a country road, he met a shepherd who was driving his flock of sheep and goats to a nearby hill where there was good grazing. One of the goats was lame and limped along slowly, always falling behind the rest of the flock. But the shepherd showed no pity for the poor beast and goaded it with a stick. When Lord Buddha saw what was going on, his heart was moved by pity and compassion. "Where are you going with your herd?" he asked. The shepherd pointed it to the nearby hill. "Would you have any objection if I were you to carry this poor lame goat on my shoulders to the top of the hill? asked Lord Buddha. The shepherd laughed. Why? Of course not, he replied. So Lord Buddha happily carried the goat to the top of the hill and left it there with the rest of the flock. Moral of the stories: saints are filled with love for all of God's creation, be it a bird, animal, or any other living being. If a man was to realize that the Lord is in all hearts and that none is without him, then he would have regard for the hearts of others. My dear students, this is one of my favorite spiritual book, and I would encourage you all to read as many books as possible, because reading is wisdom. Reading gives you power. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful evening ahead.